So let me get this straight. You say that you were one of the heroes of the Earth-Romulan War, the Battle of Endor. You survived the fight on LV-426, the Battle of Pandora, the Great Tomato Wars, and you bagged the most at the Great Treble Hunt? Well, there you have it, fellas. We've got a genuine character here, full of guile, charm, persuasion, and a whole lot of bull. Hello, everybody. Sparkster1701 here. To wrap up our month, we are going to take a look at an Aerialbot. We have here Slingshot. Now, Slingshot was available in 1986. He would also be available in 1987. And like Fireflight that we covered earlier, he was available on retail cards and in a gift set with the other Aerialbots. The toy here has an interesting history, since it is a bit smaller than the other Aerialbots. The Generation 2 version of Slingshot was done up in gold and silver, with a special slingshot pattern on the wings. So that kind of gave him a rather unique and interesting look. However, it also meant that he suffers greatly from gold plastic syndrome and breaks very easily. In fact, that Slingshot, the G2 Slingshot, is famous for being the most frequently broken Transformer toy in existence. So it's kind of, if any of you out there are lucky enough to have one that's still intact, put it somewhere where nobody will ever touch it. Ever. And for a good number of years, Hasbro lost the trademark to use Slingshot as his name. So for a good number of years, there were versions of this character that were renamed Sling or Quick Sling, so that they could continue as the same character but a different name. You listen to some of the other Hasbro toy reviewers, such as Half the Battle Timmer, and we all kind of have the same agreement about Hasbro and their poor track record of keeping tabs on their trademarks. You know, kind of, Hasbro, if anybody there is listening, instead of moving to Boston, how about hiring somebody to pay attention to your trademarks so you don't lose any of them? And probably another change is the fact that there have been versions of the Aerialbots that did not include Slingshot. He would be replaced by a helicopter character called Alpha Bravo. But fortunately, Hasbro was able to regain the trademark, because we are getting a new Slingshot this year. I think he should be about ready to release at the time that this video gets posted. So I will definitely be looking forward to that. It has him in similar colors, supposedly cartoon accurate, and he comes with 2 guns. And the guns can be mounted under his wings. And they apparently, from what I've read, with what was been told about Slingshot here, he's going to be assigned a specific limb for Superion, but unlike with the Stunticons the year before, they will allow the Scramble City type movement where they can be placed as either arms or legs. The main instructions will have Slingshot be the right arm, but if you would rather him be a leg, you have that as an option, unlike with Menasor, where we didn't have that. So that will be a nice improvement, and that makes me look forward to the new Aerialbots as they come out. I may have to break down and ask some of my friends to help keep an eye out for it. We'll worry about that later. We have more important things to do right now, like this review. Alright, let's take a look at Slingshot's lone accessory, especially since we built this up a couple of weeks ago. Slingshot only comes with one gun, which is listed as a neutron rifle. Now, as I stated earlier in Fireflight's review, Slingshot can't give his gun to somebody else, nor can he use any of the others, due to the fact that his arms are thinner. You take a look here at the brackets for his gun. There is not a lot of room in there. All the other Aerialbots have fat arms. They would not be able to hold this. And as you can see here, Slingshot's arms are barely there. Now, part of that is due to his what his alternate mode is, but it's also a design in the toy. He just cannot wield their weapons because they'll just fall off. Unless you use like some mounting putty to help hold it on there, but it's kind of, he's got his own. Just give him his, and that's all you need, really. Now we'll take a look at Slingshot's articulation, and like with Fireflight, you're not going to get much here. You can raise the arm out about so far, and the arm rotates at the shoulder all the way around. And that pretty much is it. You don't really get a whole lot to look forward to out of the Aerialbots. To transform Slingshot, it's pretty much the same as what it is with Fireflight. We'll fold the arms down to the side and then squeeze the legs up into the hips. Fold the wings down. Then we bring down the tail section to cover the feet and the cockpit to cover the head. And Slingshot becomes a Sea Harrier jump jet. Now, he doesn't have a landing gear up here in the cockpit. It is mounted into his chest, so he's always in a position to land. And while Slingshot is the smallest and weakest of the Aerialbots, he does possess a unique feature. By being a Harrier as his alternate mode, he has VTOL style takeoff and landing. So he does not need a traditional runway like the other Aerialbots do to land. Although it's kind of rendered somewhat moot due to the fact that he can just transform and land as a robot like everybody else. But if he's got to pose as a real one on a mission, he can go into places where the others can't, since he does not require the traditional runway. So it is nice to have the variety, and that also kind of explains why in some situations Alpha Bravo has replaced him, since the helicopter would have the same feature. I don't know if they're going to release an Alpha Bravo for this Superion. I kind of hope they do. It would be a nice way to pay homage to those who may have gotten Alpha Bravo instead of Slingshot. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. I've heard mixed things, so I'm not 100% sure. At any rate, we'll take a look here at Slingshot's card, and this one's even better than Fireflight's. So as you can see, we got a decent picture of him, and it's not really all that torn up. Right here's where the toy would be, and over here is his gun. And he apparently retailed at some store for $3.97. I think this would be a clearance price one, but whatever. We flip it around to the back side, and we get kind of the same sight that we saw with Fireflight. We got the robot points, and again, he was only worth half a point. We get, instead of a mural, we get all the Aerialbots. Slingshot is number 4 in the line. Then we get a stylized picture of the toy here, and we get a listing of all the contents. The jet, the gun, and a set of stickers. And we get transformation instructions next, since he already has his landing gear down. Then how to place the stickers, collect your robot points, play with the rub sign, and read the tech specs. Then down here in the corner we have the barcode, and then we have his tech spec. And again, I do have the gift set variant, so that you can have a look at it. Again, everything's kind of the same as the way I mentioned it with Fireflight. But I just wanted you to see how it looks, and you can see that they did the same thing. The picture is mirrored. Or you could almost say it's two of Slingshot and he's about to fist bump himself. Okay, that comes off as weird. Moving right along here, it's done up in red to signify he is an Autobot. It lists him as an Aerialbot above the picture, and of course the picture is the same one that's found at the front of the card. It gives his name as Slingshot, and his function is ground troop support. And as a jet that can hover, that is something that many of those are capable of. They're usually meant as a ground troop support, since they can hold their position and then fire upon soldiers and tanks and whatnot on the ground. And then there's a quote underneath it that's associated with Slingshot, and it says, "I'm even better than I think." He won't ever win a Mr. Popularity contest. Incessant braggart, takes credit for exploits of other Autobots. Optimus Prime is supportive since he's hardworking and loyal, but he secretly lacks self-confidence. Vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, flies at Mach 1.6, range 800 miles, extremely maneuverable. Sharpshooter, has twin mortar cannons as jet, neutron rifle as robot. With fellow Aerialbots forms Superion. And this covers a lot that was definitely shown in the cartoon, especially when they were created. Slingshot did come off as an incessant braggart and a major jerk. He really didn't like being brought to life as an Autobot and being forced to join their conflict. He did not like Silverbolt due to the fact that the Aerialbot leader is afraid of heights. And there was even a later episode where he was willing to worship Megatron due to the fact that he thought Megatron was a lot cooler since he had more jets in his army. So yeah, Larry's bit earlier definitely goes well with how Slingshot would act. Then we now move here to the grid. Normally you would need a decoder to help read these, but I can see the line pretty good. It lists his strength as 6, his intelligence is also 6, his speed is 8, his endurance is 4, his rank is 5, his courage is 8, as is his firepower and his skill. So, despite being a braggart and such, Slingshot is relatively good at his job. So we can see why Optimus Prime does support him. Now we get to my thoughts. The character himself, yeah, there's no getting around it. Slingshot's character is terrible. Slingshot is a jerk. He always has been and always will be. And I don't think any of us would appreciate him any other way. There's always somebody in any military unit that's a jerk. Universal to everybody. Well, maybe except to some delusional people, but for the most part, everybody knows in every unit there's gonna be the guy that's always a jerk. So, Slingshot unfortunately gets the role of being the jerk. But he has proven that despite the fact that he is a jerk, he can still be depended upon to do his job. The toy, however, he's slightly better than many of the other Aerialbots. Since he has a different means of flying and landing, that definitely gives you something different to play with. Unfortunately, that's about it when it concerns Slingshot. He does suffer from some play wear, since, like you can see, the paint on the cockpit has started to flake on mine. And then, of course, he is predominantly white. So you know that that's going to lead to sun fading over time. Thankfully, I don't have to worry about that. Because once we're done with this, he's going back in the drawer where he stays hidden. Until I get the new Slingshot. But other than that, like with many of the others, with the Aerialbots, there's really not much to get excited over. It was nice to have a team of jets to finally have some flying Autobots. But unfortunately, the Aerialbots in the long run really just don't deliver in the Generation 1 form. We don't get any missiles, despite the fact that the bio lists missiles. So, we kind of ended up getting the short end of the deal on this one. At any rate, that's my review of Generation 1 Slingshot. I hope you all enjoyed it. Please do remember that if you love the content that we feature on the channel, Larry and I would certainly appreciate a like, share, comment, and subscribe. This is Sparkster1701 saying I'll